What's the strongest ship in the fleet? And I know fleets. Friendship. Scene snobs, you guys are great.
Welcome, everybody, back to Warp Factor Fiction. This is episode 5. We're back again. We are still on Enterprise. This is season 3, the first half, episodes 1 through 12. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Nick, who is sitting next to you? And I'm going to tell you right now. We've had a little bit of a change. If you guys do check out the Scene Snobs, you might know that Casey has actually departed. He's left the Scene Snobs. We are in good standings. Casey's my best friend. We talk all the time. We just talked a little bit earlier today, and he's doing really well. He actually gave me this hoodie the other day, and I love it, and I appreciate you for it. And thank you so much for your Casey man. And but I am joined as my new co-host, who's joining in with me, and you'll be seeing him for a while. This is my stepson, Tommy.
Hello.
Welcome, Tommy. Thanks for joining in, man. Want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your love of Star Trek?
My name's Tommy. I got into Star Trek not long ago, actually. You showed me. I really got into it in Picard.
Yes. Well, the one thing I really liked about it is because we did start watching it. What was the show? We started watching DS9. You started watching DS9 with me a few years ago.
I never really got into that, though. Picard was my first full season.
Well, yeah, you were pretty funny about it because I would go back and forth between TNG and Picard, and you would always say to me, you always seem to like TNG more than Picard. Not Picard, TNG more than DS9. And then Picard you got into as we were watching because it seemed a little newer, and you like the newer movies as well. But I always told you how everything was interconnected, and you seemed interested in it. And when this happened, we started talking about it, and I wanted to bring him in, and he has an interest in checking it out. So I thought it would be a fun ride for him to join in on this and maybe kind of get a young perspective on the Star Trek universe. So what do you think, Phil?
That'll be cool, and welcome to episode 5 of Warp Factor Fiction.
That's right. A chronological analysis of Star Trek on screen, where we are going in order of Star Trek, everything you've seen on screen, all the animated, all the live action, the movies, the TV shows, the whole 9 yards. We are, like I said, we're in Enterprise Season 3. We are in the middle of the Xindi War. Now, to give you a little bit of a backstory, guys, we've talked about it with Seasons 1 and 2. Leading up to this is very much the pioneer days of Starfleet and them joining in and their flagship in Enterprise, the NX-01, traveling around, meeting new species. Well, this is very much a change. The studio wanted to change things up when they started this new season. It was in danger of being canceled after season 2, but they gave it one more try and said, go out there. We want a little more action. They wanted and to add a little bit more, and I hate to say this to you in front of you, buddy, but they wanted to add a little more sexiness to it. And they kind of did that element. They wanted to add the grittiness. They wanted this whole element to come in and kind of change the flavor of what Star Trek was, kind of save it, and to kind of give them what they were getting from the Star Wars movies of the time and other science fiction properties. And we kind of saw that a few months earlier from this season through Star Trek Nemesis. We'll get into that and more. We've talked about it a little bit in other shows, our Quarter Impulse show, things like that. But in this season, it very much was an allegory for 9/11. What we talked about in season 2 and final episode, Earth has a terrorist plot against it, and 7 million people die with a new weapon they are attacked with a new weapon that they have never seen before. It is from the future. A species called the Xindi attack them. They find that out. And then it is tasked, Enterprise is tasked with going out, led by Admiral Archer and his crew, with the Makos now in tow. And the Makos are the military faction that was with Starfleet in the early beginning, which we also see in Star Trek Beyond, which we'll get to when we get to that movie. And they go out and they go hunting the Xindi in the Expanse. That's where they're hiding out. The Xindi are made up of 5 different species, all come together as a council, and they live together, they work together, the whole 9 yards. So this is where they come in, and it is, like I said, it's an allegory for 9/11. There's a lot of themes that are very similar. It happened only a few years after 9/11, so many themes to talk about here. We'll get into that. I realize as an 11-year-old, you don't know a lot about that. We're going to discuss it a little bit here and there, and you're going to learn about it for sure. But as we go on, we're going to talk about the first 12 episodes. So let's get started there. I'm going to go down the first 12 episodes. We're going to talk about it, highlight some things that we really like, highlight some things we really don't like, and then we'll move on from there. Sound good?
Mhm.
All right. Let me pull up what I got. Okay, so we start off with The Zindi. That is episode 1 of season 3. It has now been 6 weeks since the attack on Earth. The NX-01 Enterprise is traveling through the expanse. They have not found any clues to where the Zindi are. They are at a loss. They're just really chomping at the bit, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of driving them mad a little bit, it seems. They get word that there's this prison mining colony, and if they go down there, and Captain Archer, joined by Trip, go down to meet with the warden, so to speak, trying to adjust so you guys can hear me. So they go down to meet with the warden, so to speak, and he's a very deceitful being. He says, I have some information for you if you give me a certain payment for it. And when they get down there, he traps them, and he calls the Zindi to come and get them. Now it's a mad dash escape. They find another prisoner who does know where the Zindi are. He is part Zindi. They all have to escape together. And it becomes this whole rescue mission / escape mission. I have to tell you, this episode wasn't one of my favorites. I didn't think it was a strong suit coming out. I would love to hear what you thought.
I did not think it was one of my favorites either. I think the key character, the most key character there was Archer for that episode.
Okay.
To me, that episode felt like part of it felt like a Mission Impossible movie, because how like they were going up through the thing with like all the traps and like they had to get past it. It almost felt like a Mission Impossible movie.
I like that comparison a lot. That doesn't really feel like that, especially when they're climbing out of the shaft and such. That's a great comparison, because it did feel, and like I had said with season 3, they wanted a more action-packed sort of season. It did have that feel of like that escape, that full escape. They're trying to get out, and then they have the Makos come in later and try and save the day. I love the addition of the Makos and to get that backstory, but they really didn't shine as much as I would have liked to. And this wasn't a good opener, in my opinion.
I do not. I think if they had this at like the 3rd or 4th episode, I feel like it could have been. I feel like it would have been maybe more fitting to put it not like late into the season, but like maybe like an episode or 2 at the beginning. Wow. Like them in the expanse, like them traveling through to the expanse. Because like it took so long, that was like a big time skip. So I think they could have like just 2, like even if it's just 1 episode of just like the ship, just normal life on the ship without danger.
I love that point. That's a great point. I think I would have liked this episode more if it wasn't the first episode coming out. If this was like episode 3 or 4, and we're finally getting that clue, you're right. Like I think, or even if it's like episode 3 and you got 2 episodes of them, like the first episode traveling, I would have actually liked to pick up and see episode 3 or season 3, episode 1. Then maybe meeting the Makos, getting together, starting to travel to the expanse.
And like just like normal life on the ship, because you don't really see normal life on the ship. Usually it's something's happening. Usually it's something that spirals off course.
Yeah.
The one that would be closest to that was
point.
The one that we'll be talking about next episode, I feel like would be number 16, but even that wasn't the normal one.
I love that point. That is a really great point. And it goes to show you, when it comes to TV shows, how, and this isn't an out of order thing. Some TV shows do that, where they might air something out of order on TV, and then it feels out of whack. Like, why is that character there when they got introduced 3 episodes later? because it was aired out of order. And that happens. It's happened in many other shows. This has that feel. But you're right. I don't like. I think I would have liked this episode more if it was deeper. Very good point. Really enjoyed that. All right. Let's move on to episode 2. Episode 2 is Anomaly. So because we're in the Expanse, we're dealing with, there's many anomalies happening. They have these spheres that have been built. They don't know yet why they were built. We know because we watched the season, and we'll get there and we'll explain it a little bit. But these spheres have been built, and these spheres are creating anomalies. I will only leave the fact that these spheres have been are from the future, and that is what's creating the time paradox and the anomalies.
I didn't think the spheres were from the future because during it they say the spheres were built about 1,000 years ago.
In this episode, they were. Oh no, not that episode. They did it in the religious zealot episode. They thought they were built, but they were actually built by the
sphere builders.
The sphere builders. Yes.
But I thought during that episode they were they were built 1,000 years ago, and then.
But it's technology from the future.
Oh yeah, that was. Yes,
yeah, so it's creating the anomaly because it's not supposed to be there, and as the temporal war is fighting, it's creating those anomalies. Right. So when we get into it, all of these anomalies are creating catastrophe on the sets, not on the sets, on the ships and such. I'm saying sets, but you know how it is. So as we go on, the anomalies are like it's catastrophe on like the dilithium's not really working correctly. Which is their main source of power for everything. They get attacked by pirates in this episode.
Yes, they do.
The Osarian pirates. So it's just one of those things. Like they follow the pirates because remember when the Osarian pirates attack, they do capture one of them, but they steal pretty much all of their ammunition.
And that is how they found the sphere because they go in there and so do they.
Yeah, and they get their stuff back, which I thought was a really good one. I thought this was a good one because we finally got this action. We finally see what's going on. We get a sphere. We see inside what's being kept in there. What did you think of this episode? And who's your highlight character in this? I do agree with you. By the way, for the first episode, I do agree with you that Archer is my highlight character. That's it.
I couldn't really think of a highlight character. I don't think this episode really has a highlight character. I think this was more like a group episode. For me,
I love that. Yeah, that's a good.
Although I don't know, I think the only thing that I could think of, I don't know. I still have I don't know, but like maybe Archer because that was like showing.
I'll take a group. If you want to say the group,
I do. Okay. The only reason I think I think it's more of the group, but like Archer maybe because like. When throwing the guy into the brig, and the airlock, nearly killing him.
I know, right?
Was a not very Archer thing to do, and it shows how the Expanse can change people. How the Osarian said, like the Expanse changes you. Like we had to do these things, and so Archer did that.
Yeah.
But I do still think it was more of like a group.
Yeah, and the one thing I really like about that is because I've talked about this with seasons 1 and 2. And how Archer changed through. Archer was very cavalier in the first season. Every time he made a decision, especially when he's breaking Prime Directive because he thought he was doing the right thing, and there was no Prime Directive. You know what the Prime Directive is. We talked about that, right? Where you don't, if a species doesn't have warp, we don't mess with them. Because if you start messing with them and they don't have that capability, you're kind of changing their way of life. So we create the Prime Directive. That's the number one rule. We do not break this directive. Because we can't change these civilizations.
Right.
And we don't overstep other civilizations either, even if they have warp. So like if there are people who have certain religious capabilities or certain technological capabilities, religious beliefs, things like that, we don't overstep because that's their world. If they're on our ship or something, that's different. It's like you're here, we'll respect you. But you can't push on us either how it works. And that's just kind of like the respect that you give. Now, he was always breaking it in the first season, but by the second season, he's realizing, I got to stop breaking it. It has catastrophic tendencies towards other things. So, and we'll talk about that more in other areas. But in this, you're right, and I love the Osarian pirates doing that because we do see them when they become pirates later. We'll talk about that in the second half of the season when they have to steal the warp core, and what that does and who Archer becomes. And you'll see in season 4 how Archer deals with that PTSD of having to become that guy and become that warlike commander, So I like how you said the group effort on this. I'm going to go a little bit different. I think Trip really shined in this because he was dealing with the anomalies the most, and I really like how he did that. I also think that Travis did a really good job, and he shined as a pilot. All right, let's go to the next episode. And the next episode is Extinction. That's episode 3 of season 3. This is one where Hoshi, Archer, Reed, and T'Pol go down to this planet. They start getting transformed. They start devolving into a different alien type of species that's very cavemanish.
They're called like the Lokek.
Yes.
They're like the Lokek made this thing where it's just like to go back to I think it was Urquhart.
I thought it was okay. It was not.
No, they are called Lokek, but they want to get back to their city, which is called
Yeah, but the city's gone by now. Like it's all because they're run extinct, right?
Yeah, they were going extinct, so they made this virus so that they wouldn't go extinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But T'Pol does not get infected.
She does get affected, but it's slower for her genealogy because she's Vulcan. So she's not. But remember, she is affected, but she's slowly changing. So she's trying to stay with them. She can work with them, and they trust her because they were there the whole time with her. As they develop too much, and she's trying to work with Phlox and them. Because remember, they try to take her off so that way she wouldn't keep going too far, and they were going to send Phlox down. But she stayed, and she was like, "No, I'm getting through to them." So I thought this was a pretty good episode. T'Pol definitely shined in this episode.
That was what I put as well. I had T'Pol. Some thoughts on it. It was kind of weird episode. It was a weird episode.
It was honestly, this was what we call for especially Star Trek, and it works perfectly for Star Trek. It was like a landing party episode, like an away mission episode, which is exactly what it was. It kind of took you away from the full story. Like, yeah, they were there for a Xindi reason, but it just kind of took you out of it. It wasn't a great episode, but it was well acted, I thought.
Yes, I do think this was better than the first episode. Still.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And like I said, T'Pol to me really was.
So I feel like T'Pol was like the only character really that got any development at all there, because like nobody else. Because like yes, it was Archer, Reed, and Hoshi, but like they were completely changed.
Yeah.
And like you barely saw Reed. It was mainly Archer and Hoshi because like something happened to Reed like Reed got captured, and then Archer and Hoshi kept going to Urquhart, but like they were aliens, so it was really only T'Pol.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing.
Good point. I like that. All right, so the next episode is episode 4, Rajan. And so basically, Enterprise helps an alien woman, Rajan, seeking to escape her life as a sex slave. Excuse me, I know you're 11, but we won't get into that portion of it, but that is what it is. Once on board, she uses her abilities to gather biometric data about humans and is recaptured by her employers, the Xindi Council. Now, as an 11-year-old, I do realize that Star Trek is going to have some adult themes. If you do have questions, I am happy to answer them for you. But let's save any deeper questions for the father-son talks later. Okay.
I have this one for the key character being Archer. I don't know, because like
I thought Archer shined in this. I thought Archer was very. When Archer went back, and I'm sorry to cut you off. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to add to this real quick while the thought was in my head. Archer really showed a lot of who Archer was in the first 2 seasons in this one. So please proceed.
I do feel like this episode was a little forgettable though, because I don't remember a ton about this episode.
Mhm.
I remember like the slave girl getting data for the Zindi, and that Archer was like the big character, but that's it. I hardly remember anything else.
It is a forgettable episode. She was working with the Zindi Council.
Right, she was working with them, but like they kill her if she didn't do the info.
Yeah, she was being used for sure. And you're right. And she was sent on there to do it. And she was doing what she had to do. But yeah, it was a forgettable episode. But I agree with you. Archer was the one that shined on this one. But it wasn't a high up for you.
It wasn't. It's not. It's for me. Out of these 12, it's more like a mid tier because like it was good, but it wasn't great, and it was like a little forgettable. So like it would be like top 4, but it's forgettable. So I put it at like maybe 7, 8.
I did like the Makos in this. I like that you got to see the Makos more in action on this, and you started learning a little more. It was a good opener to learn more about them.
Yes.
Okay, so we go to episode 5, Impulse. Enterprise answers a distress signal from a stranded Vulcan ship. Only when arriving, they find the ship completely desolate, wrecked, and filled with Vulcan zombies. Now, this one is one of my favorites.
I did like this one.
This was a cool horror side of Star Trek, which you don't often see. And they dealt with the Vulcans coming in, and they're affected. So basically, I can't remember the name of it at the moment. I should.
It was Trillium D.
Trillium D. That's
that
right.
affects the Vulcans and like slowly turns them and like they get addicted. You'll see that later.
But it changed and I love how they did it because they say zombies here and they do come off very zombie-esque, but it is almost like very, and I don't expect you to know this, but at 11, and I hope you never know this, but it is the way they made them look. It was like hints of zombie when it was in the horror parts, but then if you really got a good look at them, especially with DePaul, it was almost like very remnants of drug addict. Like you can see the effects of drugs.
I can kind of see that because like later in the later half of the season, DePaul would use it similar to how a drug gets used. Like, because she's addicted and like she takes like the shots of it.
Yeah, because she has to wean herself off, and that's very close.
And like they just become addicted. Very
close to like methadone, and how meth addicts have to wean themselves off of meth. You just can't quit it. So you have to go through doctors and such and get the medicine to go off. It was an interesting way to kind of go about it. The fact that the Vulcan ship, the Saleya, is there, and Paul wanting to go and meet with them and not knowing about the Trillium D and not knowing that this causes this because it was only a part of the Expanse. And then to see those effects once she gets on and see her and how it brings you down to your baser form and like it's affecting her and bringing her emotions out more and more where she can't control her emotions. I love that. She shined in this episode. T'Pol was great.
I have T'Pol here as well. I didn't know Vulcans had emotions. I thought Vulcans did not have emotions, and the only reason Spock did was because he was half human. This was when I actually realized Vulcans had emotions. And like they really touched down on this because like in multiple episodes they say Vulcans have emotions. They just learned how to suppress them completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a big thing with the Vulcans, and the fact that they often mention, and you'll see it as we go on. And I know you, and to give full transparency, Tommy stepping into this hasn't had a chance. He's really stepped up and has not had a chance to watch seasons 1 and 2 yet. I've really pushed him. He's watched season 3. He is going back to watch seasons 1 and 2 over the summer while he's at his dad's. So he's going to watch seasons 3, season 4 for this month and next month. We're going to watch Discovery. And then while he's at his dad's this summer, he says he's going to watch seasons 1 and 2 so he can learn those first 2 seasons, especially 2, because 2 is the best season.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's so good. You're going to love it. So you will get to that. But this, you're absolutely right. And like you'll learn a lot about the suppression of Vulcan emotions in that season 2. They talk about it quite a bit. So, all right. So, so T'Pol was really the I think the one that really stuck out on that. It was a cool zombie horror episode. I thought was good, and you learned a little bit more about the Trellium. They introduced it there. You know, other than that, I didn't think it was a big episode to really shine.
Wait, they introduced the Trellium in the first episode, though.
But I'm sorry, you're right. They did, but I meant because they were in the Trellium mines.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that mining colony was.
Yeah.
But I meant, yes, they introduced it, but I meant in this, they introduced what the effects were. Because that plays in a lot this season. And even the next season, even season 4, it still kind of comes up because she still has the addiction. I meant with T'Pol and what Trillium D does to Vulcans.
Because the reason they're so affected by the anomalies is because they can't use it, or T'Pol will become like that. So,
well, they still do. They still have to use it to ward off the anomalies, but they have to use it very little, and so sparingly they have to use it to kind of keep going. And she's trying very hard not to.
This one.
Okay, so Exile is the next episode, episode 6 of season 3. Hoshi starts getting haunted by somewhat of a ghost on the ship, and he's calling out to her. And then once she starts to realize that it's not a ghost, it's actually a man reaching out to her telepathically, and he wants to meet with her. He says that he can help decipher the Xindi's weapons location, because they are building the next weapon to destroy Earth completely. I call it the Death Star weapon because that's basically what it is. So he wants to come in. He's like a 400-year-old exiled alien who lives on this planet by himself. They go to visit him. He says, "I'll help you, but Hoshi has to stay with me while I'm doing this work," because he has fallen in love with her. He has telepathically linked with her, and he knows everything about her. It is very creepy in a lot of things. He's a very beastly looking. I
think he looks really gross, honestly. Just the character design. It looks like he's like burned. It looks like he's a human almost, but it's like his entire body is just like severely burned with like how it's just like.
Well, he has those tentacles that kind of come out of his head too.
Well, other than that, of course, but like his he just looks like he's like severely like 3rd degree burned everywhere.
You make it 400 and see how you look. I'm kidding. So I get what you're saying, but I think that's what they're going for. I think they were going for a very Beauty and the Beast type of vibe with the story of what they're trying to go with. You know, him falling in love with her being kind of creeped out by the whole situation of like having to stay with him, but realizing it's for the. I don't know if it's for the betterment of the mission, but it is for the good of the mission, sort of, or she thinks it is. And it kind of plays out. I didn't love this episode. I found it very kind of boring. I thought, like, I don't mind a Hoshi episode, but I wish it was more on point with the mission.
I feel like they did the Hoshi episode. Later in the season, it was like 22 or 23. It was one of the ones where like she something happens to her, like she gets captured.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get to that. But yeah, I just don't want to jump ahead on that and confuse anybody.
I just felt like they did, and even times when she didn't shine as much, I feel like they did do her character a little better in some areas.
Yeah, my problem with that is like, I can talk a lot about Enterprise and what they've done with Enterprise. I feel like they went too far to make certain characters shine in certain episodes. Whereas I always kind of like the TNG sort of side of it, or the DS9 did it really well. Voyager, even TOS, like all of them really did. You had episodes that were centric to characters, but the crew was always like there. They're always working together, and it was always important for them to do that. They didn't do that a lot in the show.
I feel like for Enterprise here, one of the episodes, they had it really centered around one character in this half, but it also had a lot of the other crew in it. That episode is my favorite episode. I feel like they did that one really well.
Well, let's get there first.
Okay.
Before we do, I want to just say this: Hoshi was the shine in that. She did a great job. She did a great job in that episode. I just didn't think it was a strong episode.
Mhm.
But I liked her in it. I think.
Yeah, I think she did well in it, but I don't think overall the episode was as strong as it could be.
Yeah, perfect. I'm just gonna leave it at that. That was a great point. All right. So we get to episode 7, and episode 7 is called. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. Ooh, The Shipment.
Oh, this one, yeah.
This might be one of my favorite episodes.
This is one of them.
This is a good one. Let me read off the summary first before we get into it, because I want everybody to know kind of what it's about. Enterprise follows a lead and discovers a Xindi lab that refines chemosite. Chemosite. Thank you. The key ingredient. That's see why I brought him up. The key ingredient in the weapon being built to destroy Earth. An away team of Archer, Reed, and Hayes. Hayes is the corporal of the Makos, and he's sort of a central character.
Major, because all the others are corporals, like Corporal.
He is Major. I'm sorry, not Corporal. Major Hayes. And he is a major character. He leads the Makos who come in. Confront the lead researcher, Gralik Dur, who was employed by Degra who becomes a very essential character later, to refine the chemosite, but was never told what it would be used for. When Gralik realizes it was his research that contributed to the 7 million deaths on Earth, he agrees to help Archer prevent further loss of life. Meanwhile, on Enterprise, Phlox and Tucker study the weapon they seized from the Xindi and find an organic component, a life form serving as the rifle's power cell. Despite T'Pol's objection, Tucker tests the weapon. This was a good one because, again, it's another one where I think Archer shines the most.
I also have Archer shining the most here.
It was very reminiscent of who Archer was once he realized who Gralik is, and that Gralik is a good person who just is doing his job.
And like he didn't ask because of like, oh, you want this? Well, that's going to give us a lot of money. Well, yay, we're getting money and it's our job. So yeah. And like it's legal. So, I like this one. It really does set the stage because if they didn't have this one, Earth would be destroyed. If they didn't get this episode, Earth would be destroyed.
Yeah.
Because in this episode, Gralik Dur, he plants like something in the chemosite that
it was Enterprise, like a tracker, wasn't it?
Like it changed the change.
Oh,
like,
that's right. It changed chemosite so it wouldn't work.
Almost, yes, and like it also would like so that they could track it, and the probe didn't work. They found because without that they never would have found the probe. Like the weapon just before the main weapon. And if they hadn't found that, they never would have gotten something, that's later, but they never would have gotten something, which would bring them to something. Because
I love your description.
Because I can't say that.
I know you, and I don't want to give anything away, so I do appreciate it. But let's move on from it though. Again, Archer, I think, was the big the shine in this. All right, so we move on to the next episode, which is Twilight. It was an interesting episode. I like this one. Personally, I think T'Pol shined in this one more.
I said that I put T'Pol as well. It was hard. It was close.
Archer was a good one, but
I had T'Pol here. This game.
Let me read the summary before we start. Okay. His memory crippled, Archer awakens years in the future after the Xindi have reduced Earth to a cinder, and the remnants of humanity have settled on a distant planet. Now, Archer learns that he may be the key to undoing this tragedy. Proceed, sir.
This gave me Mirror Universe vibes. This gave me almost like a Mirror Universe. At the end, it explained how it isn't, but this was almost like a Mirror Universe to me.
Yeah, because it changed it up. Because in the beginning, like it tricks you because like T'Pol has long hair, she's dressed down, like not in uniform. They're living in a hut. He's like got the gray hair. They're married, and they're just living on this colony now. It's a really good episode.
There's another episode in this app that almost seems like a Mirror Universe episode at the beginning, but then it's not.
Don't worry, you'll get your Enterprise Mirror Universe episode in season 4. 2. You got a 2-parter. And it is a weird one, but you'll love it. So this episode was not anything that I think blew it away. I think it was just sort of showing a glimpse of what would happen if the weapon went off, and it kind of, for Archer, solidified we have to stop this at all costs.
I do feel like it was. I liked this episode. This was a top 5 episode for me.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
But I do. I liked it because it also showed like that Trip Tucker becomes captain. Trip becomes captain. I believe Reed also becomes captain of a different ship.
Mm-hmm.
He gets a weird goatee looking thing.
Yeah. Is that why you're saying the mirror episode?
Well, it was also because like at the beginning, but also like in some other Mirror Universe episodes, like in the TOS one, everyone had the goatee, and they were like something like.
Well, that's actually a popular misconception of Star Trek. It's not goatee. Not everybody has a goatee on the Mirror Universe. It's Spock had a goatee, so that was like he had the goatee, and that was like the differentiating factor of Spock is a bad guy when he has the goatee. So it changes up, and there's always a little, because like in DS9 they had a mirror episode. They didn't have a mirror episode in TNG at all.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, they never touched down on it.
That was.
I was actually they did in the comic books, but they never touched down on the original.
For such a long running show, I feel like they should have done like a Mirror Universe.
They were dealing with Q and the Borg, like that was enough. Like
I feel like what would have been a really good way to set up a Mirror Universe episode is at the beginning it's not a Mirror Universe. You have Q sending them into a Mirror Universe, and then they have to get out.
We'll get there with Picard.
They did that in Picard, but I feel like they should have done that in TNG.
Let's leave it alone because we're on Express Season.
That's right.
I love the conversation, but remember we have Quarter Impulses where we talked about Mirror.
That's true.
So we'll get there. I don't want to stifle you, but I want to save it for the good stuff. I want to keep them coming back for more. All right, so we're gonna go on to the next episode. So I like that you called it a top 5 episode. I think that's for this season. The top 5 episode is a good one. I don't know. I'd have to rethink it a little bit, but I do like that. The next episode is North Star. It is episode 9. Enterprise investigates a previously unknown colony of humans who are living in fashion of the American Old West. They are oppressing an alien race called the
Skagarans.
The Skagarans, yes.
These were I feel like this episode was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what to say about the episode other than like
it was just an away mission episode.
But I feel like they did this one much better than they did episode 3.
Yeah.
This
100%.
one was amazing. This was top 3 season for me.
Really? This
Yes.
is a top 3 episode?
Yes, this was amazing. I really like this episode.
Okay. I like that. This was a very good, I don't know if it would be in top 5 for me, but this is a good episode. I did really like it. And I do like how their involvement came in to try and help the Skagarans and stuff like that. So.
And where it's like they broke the Prime Directive here, but technically they didn't.
Again, there was no Prime Directive still.
Right. But like, I mean, if it was the Prime Directive was there, technically they didn't break it because if you remember back then, they said that the Skagarans had a ship, but they burned everything. So they just lost all of that super advanced technology that they could have had, and now they're stuck back in the Wild Wild West. So technically they don't have it, but they did have it.
Yeah, and I like that. It was like that fun juxtaposition between the two. Like the Skagarans had them as slaves for a long time. And then, so when they came back and they kind of toppled them, they started using the Skagarans as slaves. And there's a lot of themes in here that really kind of shine through. And I liked how they played out. And I liked how the lessons kind of came in. I do like that this top 3 episode for you. Who do you think shined the most in this episode?
Archer. This was Archer for me. Yeah. Because, like, I do feel like this was really good because, like, it shows you the Star Trek world, how, because, like, there are, it showed you how even when the two people are at war and, like, they hate each other, that there can still be peace and, like, that some people from there are completely fine. Because, like, with the teacher,
teacher's trying to help,
she taught Skagarans, well, she taught the Skags, which is what they were. Which is what everyone called them.
Which is basically, it's just teaching you about racism, like how racism, especially in the Old West, like how it's working.
And it was illegal to teach him, but she still did at night.
Yeah. And I love that you're picking up on that, and you're picking up on how this kind of played out. This next episode, which is episode 10, which is actually one that I'd probably put in my top 5. I really enjoyed it. It's actually directed by LeVar Burton.
Really?
Yeah, he directed a lot of these episodes in Enterprise, but he directed this one. It's called Similitude. And it is Archer decides to make a fast-growing clone of Trip to help save his life while Enterprise is stranded in a dangerous field with nucleonic particles. So basically, Trip gets gravely injured and is dying, and he needs, excuse me, he needs a
tissue,
like a certain, like I forget exactly where in his body he needs or organ.
I think it was brain.
Was it brain tissue he needed?
And like the reason was because he was trying to so that they could go faster and so that they can go warp 5 and not push it by compressing the field. But like it blew up. It literally blew up in his face.
Yeah.
Both figuratively and literally.
Yeah. So because I mean the whole show starts off with Trip getting almost like a Spock style Wrath of Khan funeral, which just to add to it, Tommy loves the movies, by the way. We haven't talked about that. Like his introduction really was the movies. We sat down and watched. We watched Wrath of Khan. We watched, I think, Search for Spock. We watched Voyage Home. I know we watched that trilogy. And we watched.
I don't think that was my first one though, because I remember.
No, but that was like a foray that you really loved into it. But
because I believe the first one was the remake of those. I believe the first Star Trek thing I watched was.
I think you watched Into Darkness. Yeah.
It was like you were watching it, and
and you stepped in and watched it with me. I think
I do really like Into Darkness.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. When we get to it, I can't wait to talk to you about it.
I don't know why though. It was so.
And when we get to it, I'll explain why they don't like it, and I like it, but it doesn't have the impact that Wrath of Khan does for me. But when we get there,
I do feel like it was cast perfectly though. I feel like every single person.
Everybody did a great job. But wait until we get to TOS and you see Space Seed, which is the precursor to Wrath of Khan. That's when they introduce you to Khan. So, well, we'll get there. I sorry guys, we get a lot out of whack, but like I'm really excited to be doing this with them.
For this, for the highlight characters, Trip, obviously.
Trip, of course. Well, actually, I'm going to change it because,
the Sim.
Sim was actually Sim's greatness, and Sim is Trip. It is the same actor. It is Connor Trinnery who plays Trip, but he's playing Sim, who is the clone that grows.
Which is basically just Trip, but he grows super fast, has all of Trip's memories and a little bit more. Yeah,
and he's got a different personality, and I think we usually only stick to the bridge crew when we pick our highlight characters, but he is one that just really shined in this. And Phlox, I think, was a great shine for this too.
I have Phlox in another episode that he shined in.
A couple of these too.
I only have him in one, I believe. Yes, I have him in one. But that was one where he but I wrote down here for like just notes was clone.
Yeah. I know. Because I remember you ran downstairs when you watched this when you saw Trip having funeral. Like, Trip dies? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, just keep watching.
Like, I knew he died because, like, when I was reading the NX-01 manual, it was, like, the fun facts. It was, like, Trip Tucker, when he dies in, I think it said season 2, but that must have been a miss thing.
Let's move on. Let's move on. I mean, everybody does eventually. So, okay, we're going on. We're almost finished with the season. Season 3, episode 11. We only have one more episode to go after this. It's Carpenter Street.
Now, that was this one. Then is this one?
Why is this called Carpenter Street? Is because, of course, that's based after John Carpenter, who they are a fan of. When they made this episode, it's a very horror episode, like the zombie, but it's a different type. And what I really like about it is a very great actor, in my opinion. Leland Orser plays Loomis in it. And that's how you know it's connected to the Halloween universe, because Sam Loomis, who was played by Donald Pleasance in Halloween, His name is Loomis in the show.
I didn't know his name was Loomis. I thought that was
Yeah.
the password to get in because, like, I remember they
his
said
name's
Loomis.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we get that. So basically what happens in this episode is Archer and T'Pol travel back in time to Detroit in 2004 to stop 3 Xindi reptilians from constructing a bioweapon. Now, I do want to mention, because we didn't mention it earlier, the 5 Xindi species that we're dealing with here that we're going to really see that we haven't seen too much of.
Are primate, arboreal, aquatic, reptilian, and insectoid, and there's a dead one called the avians.
I love it. See, I'm just going to let him talk. He knows what he's talking about. So the reptilians travel back in time because the reptilians they're very militant crew. They really are bought all in on the Watchers telling them.
Guardian, I believe.
Oh, the Guardians, you're right. The Guardians, my apologies. The Guardians telling, oh no, the Watchers are something completely different to come later. I'm losing my mind. So the Guardians, they bought all in. They listened to them and they're like, yeah, we got to destroy Earth. They're going to destroy us. That's what they're all for.
They were basically like right after World War II Soviet Union, where it's like, yeah, we're all friends, but we're just going to do our own thing and completely go against what you all say and then eventually betray you.
Fair.
Pretty much the USSR in a nutshell.
Fair. So they step in and they're going to go, so they go back in time with the Guardians' help, and they're creating a bioweapon to take out humans in the past, so they never even get to the point where they're in the future. So yeah, it's time for Archer and T'Pol to go back and save them. How they do it, they get help from Daniels, who you remember from seasons 1 and 2, who are part of the Temporal War, who serves on the Enterprise J. It's very interesting. I don't love that storyline, but we'll talk about that in other episodes. You'll get there when you watch seasons 1 and 2 and 4.
I've watched.
I know you've
Stormfront.
seen Daniels.
I watched Stormfront 1 and 2.
Yeah, because you started season 4, but
dead already, I believe.
You'll get there. So so this episode I thought was a really good episode. I liked it a lot. It's a top 5 episode. Who shined the most for it? Me, it was Archer.
I also put Archer here.
Yeah, this is a good one. You have anything you want to add to it?
It wasn't going to. They were originally trying to kill everyone, but they were setting it off, even though it would only kill 3/4 of the population, which still would cripple it so much that they would be virtually no threat. The bioweapon, also the Xindi Council were like, no. They decided to build a giant Death Star that will obliterate humans.
Yeah, but they didn't want to use it there because they still have their Grolic had talked to his people, and there's doubt. There was some doubt stepping in. Are they our enemy? They didn't. They're out there, but we're attacking them. They haven't attacked. us.
Do we think that this might fail, and that's the reason they attack us? Because this is a 400-year war that we start, so they end up winning.
Yeah.
This was a top 5 episode. I don't have this in top 3, but I do have this in top 5 for the season.
Okay, cool. You know what? When we put this out, I would love to. We're going to round out your top 5. And now we're on to the final episode of this episode, which is episode 12, Chosen Realm. It was an episode that I didn't find very memorable. Enterprise answers the distress call of a Trianon ship after taking them on board. Digimon. Thank you very much. You're really good at this. I really appreciate that. Their leader tells they are a religious people visiting a sphere. They believe the expanse, the chosen realm, and the spheres were created by the makers 1,000 years ago, and the anomalies are their breath. It soon becomes clear that these people don't have the best intentions. They take control of the Enterprise and want to use it in the war against heretics. Digimon, right? Is that it?
Yes, Digimon.
Also orders the death of one crew member, and because Enterprise desecrated several spheres, Archer must choose. Like I said, I didn't find it very memorable. What did you think of this episode?
I didn't find it very memorable. There was one thing that I did find memorable. Again, like you've said in multiple episodes, I have Archer shining here.
Yeah.
I feel like it was, like you said, showing him from earlier seasons where it's he picks himself.
Yeah, he was willing to sacrifice himself for it, but I don't think they wanted him to, right? If I remember correctly.
They were like, I don't know if I would pick that. But what happened is he's like, this is what we use to vaporize people. It's actually the transporter, which sends him down to engineering, where he
That's right. Yeah. I remember that now.
where he pulls a mutiny against the people that pulled the mutiny on him.
Very good. Yeah, I remember that. That's it. That was a cool little trick. I forgot about that, but as soon as you said it, I remembered it.
I feel like that was really the part of this episode that I remember.
But the fact that I'm coming back to that, the fact that you have to remind me of that tells me, like, because every other episode we talk about, I'm like, yeah, I remember it. Like, we're getting into it. You know, because I watched this in March, so I'm a little behind, and then I was highlighting with you as you were watching it. But I remembered most of the stuff, and I have my notes and stuff. But this episode just washed away from me, and I felt like it was out of place because you said earlier how they erased all of their information on the Expanse.
Yes, so like all of their stuff gets deleted.
Yeah, so that to me would have probably been better in an earlier episode.
I feel like right before episode 5, because like then we get to the Vulcan ship where they then have the Trellium thing, so that can still be on the database. They can download the Vulcan ship database, which they'll still have a lot of stuff. But that would also mean I feel like they added this because if they didn't, because like if we move this, Carpenter Street would be the rounding out of the half, which actually I feel like that would be a good thing.
That would have been a good one.
Because like you stopped something about the reptilians, you know that the reptilians have their own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads into the second half of the season, which is really more of the Xindi, where you really see more of the Xindi, not like we need to find the Xindi, but like we need to stop the Xindi.
Sure.
So
that's a great point. So I think we can agree Archer,
yeah, I have Archer here.
All right, so let's talk about the full season. There's a few things we want to talk about before we close out. Who do you think shined the most throughout the season? That first half of the season, I should say. I'm going to say personally, it's probably Archer to Paul. Archer.
I have Archer here.
I feel like they made it more Archer-centric in this first half.
Because like here, if I count what episodes, episode 1, 4, 7, 9, 11, and 12, for me, were all Archer, which is like half of this season.
Yeah. So Archer, yeah. What was your favorite episode of the season?
For this half, it would be Similitude.
That's a good pick. For me, I would probably say this is a tough one, but Similitude's a good one, but I'm probably going to go Carpenter Street.
That's a top 5 for me. I have that at 4. I would put that at 4.
What's the worst episode of the season?
Probably either episode 1, 3, or 4.
Oh, so wow. So either the Xindi extinction or Rajin.
Yeah, Regine. Yeah,
Regine.
One of those 3.
I'm gonna go with 1. I'm gonna say.
I have 1. I feel like it wouldn't have been the worst. Like we said earlier, it wouldn't have been the worst if it had gone not like right at the start.
So now knowing that you have completed the season, because we're covering this in both episodes and such, and you know it's a 9/11 allegory, and I know you weren't alive for 9/11, and it was a very crazy time, and you didn't see that happen, but you read about it a little bit, and you learned about it in history class. I'm not expecting you to have any crazy insights or anything about it, but knowing that it was based on something that happened here in the United States where you live, what do you feel about it? Like, what is your feelings like seeing these characters and knowing something about Star Trek and kind of what it's supposed to be about? How do you feel about like where they're going and their intense feelings on this mission?
I don't know. I feel like they were trying to do something where it's like this was similar to how I believe it was like our Afghanistan. It was Afghanistan that we went to war with because of this.
Well, all right. Just quick history lesson. In a bridge version, a very short summarized version, I should say. So 9/11 was orchestrated by bin Laden, who was
Leader of Al Qaeda, I believe it's
leader
called.
of Al Qaeda, which was a faction of the Taliban, which was coming out of Afghanistan. Not blaming the Afghanis, not blaming Afghanistan. It was, and there's plenty more to talk about the horrific nature of what the Afghani people went through and are going through now. When this happened, and we found out, and because Osama bin Laden came out, he claimed it, and he knew it was him. George W. Bush was in office. He was our president. He declared war on. He declared a war on terror. Thinking back on it, I don't know how you declare a war on ideology, but whatever. We did need to do something. People were scared. We got hit. A lot of people devastatingly died and are still dying to this day from the effects of that day.
Wait, really?
Yeah. People. Yeah. We can talk about that off air, but because this is a podcast about Star Trek, so I don't get too deep. But so it really affected a lot of people. This was very fresh in people's minds. It's like 2003, 2004 that this had come out. So when this started, I think it was 2003, the storyline, but then it went into 2004. So it was a tough time. People really had to deal with things. It was still coming off of it. We almost immediately went from, he said the war on terror because he went from, we're going to be searching for Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, but he redirected and started a war in Iraq.
Why Iraq?
Well, he wanted to fight his daddy's war, and we can talk about that later. And I'm not saying that Saddam Hussein should have been caught and tried and everything else. That's a talk for another day. But that's where this sort of comes into play, where the terror had many faces. The terror was represented by different. That's why there's 5 different factions that look so different and are different people, because terror is represented. The terror that they're going through and that they're feeling from the attack is represented. The evil that they feel is represented by different people, right? And it's not even, and they're even, and one of the things that I liked about that they did here is even the Zindi are basing their attack on fear. So like it plays out in the end and comes around. But a lot of what they talked about in doing the season was them dealing with 9/11 and their emotions towards it.
Yeah, because Daniel says the Zindi are in the Federation.
Yeah, later on, like 400 years down the line. But we're getting there. We're going to get there. I don't want to jump ahead, but
I think so. The worst one would be 1. For me, the 5th, I have 5. I have episode 5 at 5th place for me. I liked it. I do feel like it was worse than
just give me a
Carpenter
quick
Street.
top 5. Just go down. Because we talked about the episodes.
Number 5 is episode 5. Number 4 is Carpenter Street.
Nice.
I have number 3 being, it's probably going to be 7. I really like 7. Number 2 is North Star. And
There's no wrong answers here, pal.
And number 2 is North Star. Number 1 is going to be Similitude. It was either North Star or number 7.
Okay.
The Shipment, I believe.
The Shipment was a good one. Okay. Yeah, I like Shipment a lot too.
What was your top 5?
I don't know that I have it in order, but I did 5 that I really liked the most was Carpenter Street, Similitude. All right, if I had to guess right off the bat, Carpenter Street, The Shipment, Similitude, maybe Impulse, and North Star. So pretty similar. So sort of like kind of where we were. All right, guys. Well, actually, before we go, I do want to ask you. I want to start a new segment because you're so young. We're getting into Star Trek, and Star Trek has a lot of influence in a lot of areas. I would love to know what is a life lesson, or maybe a couple of life lessons that you can take away from this season of Star Trek, or maybe this half of the season that you saw that you're like, maybe that's something that you want to emulate when you get older, like a stoicism of one of the characters, or a trait, a personality trait, or maybe it's a technology, or maybe it's a something like that.
Here, I think the world is a rough place, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
It's a good one.
I mean, like, I knew that, but like this really like did it well, where it's like the world is a rough place. Like in this, it's like the galaxy, but like basically the world is a rough place.
It's hard to hold on to your humanity, huh?
Yeah, it's hard to hold on to your humanity.
But you gotta try. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. I like that one.
I can't, but like it might have been. I can't. One of the things was I can't save humanity without. I can't save the humans without keeping my humanity. Or was something along those lines.
Okay, I like that a lot. Very good. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is Warp Factor Fiction, a chronological analysis of Star Trek on screen. I'm your host, Captain Mick Manhattan.
And I am Ensign Tommy. And make sure to check us out on YouTube with Quarter Impulse, and subscribe to our channel. Our video is only on Patreon. You can watch this on Patreon, but if you're listening, you can listen on any podcast platform. It comes out on Patreon, and then a month after it premieres on Patreon, you can listen to it anywhere on any podcast platform. But everything comes out on Patreon first. You can only watch it on Patreon. But if you want to see Quarter Impulse, you can also watch it on YouTube. I appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe to the Scene Snobs YouTube channel. We have a lot of good stuff that is not Star Trek related, but like we have the Scene Snobs podcast. There's the Friday morning show. Yeah. There's Betting Bros. Betting Bros. We have 5 takeaways. We have Did I Just Fix This Movie, which is a different movie given to me by Patreons or other Snob Nation community members. We have tons of fun stuff. Make sure you join up on the Patreon, hang out on the Discord with us, join us on social media. Tons of great things. What should they do to that subscribe button? You need to smash that subscribe button and hit the like button. I can't pull that off. You do a good job with it, though. So, guys, go check it out. We love having you. We appreciate all the support. You guys are amazing. Casey used to finish off this show in a brilliant way, and I really appreciated it. I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to say, live long and prosper. Good night, everybody. All right.
Don't you just hate those ads where you have the celebrities wearing clearly Photoshopped shirts? Yeah, me too. That's why I'm not a celebrity. Go check out snobsmerch.com for great gear and more. We have tons of fun stuff. Go check it out.
Hey, I'm Will Wheaton, and I have just received a dump truck full of gold bullion to tell you to watch The Scene Snobs.
Welcome, everybody, to Warp Factor Fiction, a chronological analysis of Star Trek on screen. This is episode 6. We are talking about Enterprise Season 3, the second half, episodes 13 through 24. I am your host, Mick Manhattan, joined by my co-host,
Tommy.
Tommy, that's right. I'm Captain Manhattan, joined by Ensign Tommy, and we are here to talk about this season. You, of course, if you joined us in the last episode, you have learned who Tommy is. He's here to stay, and we're having a good time. If you didn't listen to the last episode, then we're just going to move on without you. But we appreciate you guys joining. Remember, this is our Star Trek show where we chronologically go through every show, every episode, and we are going to have a good time doing it. Every month on our Patreon, you can watch us talk about half of a season in one episode, and then you can watch talk about the other half in the other episode, and then the next season in the next month. And we keep going until we get through it all. So keep joining us, and then head over to our YouTube, hit subscribe, hit like, and watch Quarter Impulse, among plenty of other shows. Quarter Impulse, though, is our companion series. It's 15 minutes here and there where we talk about different aspects of the Star Trek universe, of things we love or things that we really want to explore more of. Tommy, we are getting into season 3. We're on the Zindi War. We're in the Expanse. They are traveling. It's heating up. We're in the back half of the season. You had some really cool insights in the last episode. I want to motor through. I want to talk about each episode and have a good time with it. But let's, before we get started, guys, make sure you go check out thescenesnobs.com. Follow us on social media. Make sure you go check us out on, where else should they check us out?
Facebook, because sometimes we have lives on Facebook, Twitch, snobsmerch.com.
Yeah, we do have some cool, and we do have some cool Star Wars merch. We have some cool Star Trek merch. We have some cool horror, everything. So go check us out there. Let's have a good time with it. It's all over the place. All right. Let's get started, shall we? We're going to start with episode 13 of season 3 of Enterprise. And it is Proving Ground. Enterprise has picked up a trail of a tracking device Archer planted on a reptilian ship. There's a problem, however. To get to its location, Enterprise must cross a giant and very dense field of anomalies. When something gets wrong and Enterprise gets enveloped into an anomaly, there's some unexpected help. Enterprise is pulled out by an Andorian tractor beam. Commander Shran tells they are here to offer the help the Vulcans refuse. Weary of their intentions at first, Captain Archer still agrees on having the Andorians make repairs on Enterprise. Soon it becomes clear that the trail leads to Zindi testing site for the weapon that is to destroy Earth. Archer and Shran make plans to retrieve it. Anytime Shran shows up, I am 100% in. What did you think of this episode?
I really liked it. It's a weird highlight character for me, though. I have Shran as the highlight character here.
I do too. Shran is, honestly, if Shran's in the episode, Shran gets a pass because, yes, he's not a bridge crew, but he is such a mainstay. And the fact that Shran is the precipice to where the Federation, how the Federation gets built. Now, granted, it's Archer that ultimately builds Federation with the Vulcans, the Andorians, and the Tellarites. Yes. Oh, God, why am I losing it? And it's Archer meeting all of them and his relationships going forward with all of them that helps create the Federation. But Shran's relationship with them, I think, is really the precipice that highlights that. And that's why he is always the highlight episode. He's always the highlight character of every episode he's in.
For this one, there is a big part of it. This was the one that the Andorians they steal the weapon, but it blows up. Basically, they have to let it go because it's going to blow up. Because they want it, because the Vulcans are being mean to them.
Yeah, the Vulcan. Well, you are still you're prepping for this summer to watch seasons 1 and 2 because, of course, as we talked about in the last episode of War Factor Fiction, you were jumping in. You are my new co-host. Casey had to leave the Scene Snobs, which again he's my best friend. There's no ill will or hate there, hey, listen, I'm wearing this hoodie that he gave me. I love the guy. So, but Tommy has stepped in, and you're going to be watching seasons 1 and 2 over the summer while he's at his dad's visit. So, with that being said, you don't know Shran that well yet. This is actually your first introduction to Shran, really.
I've seen him before because, I've watched a little bit of it with you.
Yeah, you've seen episodes when I was watching, but for sure though. This was an episode that I thought was really good. It expanded on Archer and Shran's relationship in a big way.
I have this in top 5 for this half, but not top 5 season. For the full season, I have it top 5 in this half, but not top 5 for the entire season.
I love that. Okay, it was a good episode, and I'm definitely with you on Shran. All right, let's move on to the next episode. So, episode 14 is called Stratagem. Archer and the Zindi Degra are are in a shuttle with Degra suffering from memory loss. Archer tells him they escaped together from a prison and that the insectoids took power after destroying Earth. I love this episode. I loved this episode. To give everybody sort of a backstory of what happens in this episode, because it is more than meets the eye. They captured Degra in a ship. Degra becomes a very integral character for the rest of the season. He is part of the
Primates Indy,
and he becomes an influential voice. He created the weapon.
He designed it and created it.
Created. And so when they capture Degra and his crew, they decide to concoct this plan that it's 5 years, 7 years, or whatever it is.
3 years, I believe.
Was it 3? I thought 5 for some reason. But for 3 years down in the future, they escaped this insectoid prison colony. They were cellmates, and they're traveling. When all really was a ruse, they're actually on the Enterprise, and they're tricking Degra to try and figure out where the weapon is being stored. It all goes awry. Degra has his issues believing Archer, and it comes around, and ultimately, this is where the relationship between Degra, the whole purpose of this episode is to build the relationship between Degra and Archer.
But the thing is that Degra doesn't think he's actually ever met Archer, because remember, they bring him back to the ship, but they don't remember anything about
They
it.
wipe their minds at the end, yeah.
Because they continuously wipe the mind.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't get the information, so they wipe the mind.
And then just restart, yeah. No, and it becomes a big thing, and then at the end, they re-wipe them, let them go, once they find out the coordinates.
Azadi Prime, which is where the weapon is actually being held, not just the test site.
Yep. And that is what keeps making him doubt, because he made it sound like, oh, we're on Azadi Prime hiding out, come meet us. That's where the colonies are. And he's like, no, that's not where the colonies would be. That's not it. It's where we're hiding the weapon,
Because he's like, there's an insectoid deuterium factory on Azadi Prime or something.
Yeah. What did you think of this one?
I liked it. I have it in top 5. Same thing with 13 top 5 here, but not top 5.
Well, I think my biggest thing with this back half so far is, like, when we were talking about the first two in the last episode, episode 1, episode 2, they were not very strong episodes. But right out of the gate, I think these are 2 very strong episodes.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the entirety of the back half was really good. I don't think there was really a bad episode.
Yeah, I didn't love the season, but as far as episodes go, these were good ones. All right, let's move on to the next one. Season 3, episode 15, Harbinger. All right. While Lieutenant Reed and Major Hayes are fighting over new training program, and Trip performing the Vulcan neuropressure technique with Mako Private Amanda Cole is making T'Pol feel jealous. Enterprise finds a pod in a dangerous, ever-expanding gravimetric field. Inside is a scaled alien dying from a cellular decay. He claims he is a prisoner, promised his freedom if he cooperated in an experiment. Archer knows there's more to it when it is discovered the pod's hull is from the same material the spheres are composed. I want to add some things before we get into it. Some highlights this episode. First 2 episodes we said Shran, and what was the last episode?
Archer. I have Archer.
Same. But this episode, so this is really where things start to kick off between Reed and Hayes, which is a sort of a big ongoing conflict between them throughout the entire season, the rest of the season, because Reed is a very militant type of guy. He served in the military.
No, his parents did.
Well, his parents did, but he entered Starfleet with a military mind, and that's why he does the armory work and things like that. He was, I would say, was more the military side. He didn't join the Makos. The Makos, to him, were a little bit different. He wanted to do more of the exploring, but security was what he was all about, and that's what he was going to get on the ship. Whereas Hayes was more about the military following orders, things like that. This was so I thought like, and honestly, I thought Hayes was the one that was in the right on this. You know, a lot of people didn't like Hayes because he's pushing against one of the main characters, but I thought Reed was the one acting irrationally, personally.
I do. I feel that. I still think Reed shined more here. I still feel like Reed got more development. Because, like, Hayes,
Okay.
like, you didn't know him, but, like, with Reed, you knew him, but you didn't know some of this stuff.
Yeah, I like that. And you can, even if you're not, that's the good thing about these characters. Even if they're not doing good things, they can still shine.
And for some other notes, I have the prisoners looking a lot like the Suliban.
He did look a lot like Suliban. But before we get there, I want to talk about the T'Pol Trip
Corporal Cole.
Corporate Cole situation. Corporate Cole, of course, being a Mako. Excuse me while I move a little bit. So Corporate Cole is a Mako, and so we didn't really talk about it in the last episode because we didn't get into that. There was a lot of relationship building between T'Pol and Trip throughout this entire season.
Mainly, I feel like episode 10, because in that, Trip's like, or Sim is like, I don't know if this is his or mine.
I wouldn't say mainly. I'd say it comes to a head with Sim because the feelings are there, the memories are there, things like that. But for this, so basically how it starts out is because Trip's sister was killed and he's dealing with a lot of traumatic feelings and depression and such, he's not sleeping on this mission. And so Phlox is, hesitant to keep giving him medicine to help him sleep, and enlists T'Pol to help with some neurotherapy to help him. And it comes with a lot of like massaging, things like that, which is, sort of a true thing in real life. And, meditation and sort of things like that. So he's doing that and they're connecting that way. They're getting closer and closer. So when things sort of cool out, especially after the similitude episode, when she realizes the feelings and that her feelings are coming out because she can't suppress them anymore. He moves on and he starts connecting and doing the same things with Private Cole, and it starts hurting her because he's not doing it correctly, and it's more of a Vulcan thing. So she has to step in. She has some jealousy towards it, and it starts to become a very big thing with what's happening there, and that plays out a lot into their relationship building throughout the season. Wanted to add to that. So let's go on to the main storyline. All right. We get into it. Now the prisoner's there. Tell me, who shined for you in this? You talked about Reed shining.
No, I said Reed. Reed, I feel like
throughout the episode.
I feel like Reed was the one who shined the biggest.
What'd you think about this episode?
I liked it. I don't have it top 5, but it's
No,
I wouldn't have this at the worst episode.
No, it wasn't a bad episode. It just wasn't one that really stuck with me either, honestly.
It was I feel like ranked about the same as like maybe episode 8 and episode 9.
Yeah, to me this was more character building than revelations.
Right.
On stuff. So I definitely agree with you on that. All right, let's go to the next one, which is one I really did like, and it was a big one for Phlox.
I have Phlox shining here.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to get to the shining yet. I want to summarize it first. So, excuse me, episode 16, season 3, episode 16, and it is called Doctor's Orders. All right. While traveling to Azadi Prime, where the weapon may be being held, the Enterprise needs to cross a trans-dimensional disturbance phenomenon that could kill the humans. Dr. Phlox proposes to put the crew in a coma for 4 days while the Enterprise travels through the phenomenon and impulse. In the middle of the journey, Dr. Phlox hears weird noises, and T'Pol helps him to stay in the command of the ship. When they realize that the disturbance is longer than expected, Dr. Phlox needs to activate the warp engines to save the crew. This is before we get into it a little bit, and I'm going to ask you how you felt about this episode. This is an episode where it is very much just Phlox. Now, we do have an Archer, and now it's Phlox's mind playing tricks on him, where T'Pol's there. She's very much a voice of reason with Phlox throughout it. And I liked her kind of change throughout in personality because she becomes increasingly more irrational as they go on. And Archer does show up, but he's a figment of Phlox's imagination. But Phlox and how he deals with things throughout this is very well done. Phlox shines in this. I think we both agree on that. But I would love to hear what you think about this episode.
Who needs a skeleton crew when you have Phlox?
I love that. That's a good one. I'm going to leave it at that. Who needs a skeleton crew and even at the end when he realizes that T'Pol was under too the whole time, and that like it was him just reasoning the whole time. I love it.
So who needs a skeleton crew when you have Phlox?
You really don't. Phlox will take care of everything. I mean, the guy is not only the best doctor, in my opinion, because he learns everything. He has all of these things, but he learned how to be an engineer and handle the warp and save them in minutes because he's just that guy. Like I really
and like he just read the manual. Like, wait, you want me to read the manual?
Yeah.
And he reads the manual and gets to work.
Yes, he does, and I love that aspect of it.
I started thinking T'Pol wasn't actually during the engineering because like T'Pol usually helps with engineering, so she would know it.
But she kept saying no.
When she's like, wait,
she wouldn't put her hands on anything. I agree. Yeah, I love that. That's a great observation. Nice, dude. I love that.
Because like earlier and later in the season, she always goes down to help with engineering.
Yeah, I noticed that as we got into the engineering, and she wouldn't touch anything, and she was like, I don't know. But also her increasingly, like I knew she had time suppressing her emotions, but she was increasingly becoming erratic. It was becoming very weird. All right, we're gonna move on to the next episode, episode 17 from season 3. Probably Tommy's favorite. We'll get into it. It's called Hatchery, and it is the Enterprise finds a Xindi ship crashed on the surface of a planet. And while the team led by Captain Archer is investigating, they meet the insectoid hatchery in a compartment protected by heavy and reinforced bulkheads. Reed realizes that the air inside is breathable, and the group removes the helmets, the breathing apparatuses, but Archer is hit by a sort of substance on his face and sent to sickbay. After the examination, Dr. Phlox realizes that no damage was caused to Captain Archer, but the crew notes that he becomes obsessed to save the insectoid offspring, claiming humanistic reasons when he orders to give 1/3 of the supply of antimatter to restart the reactor of the Xindi ship to maintain the life support system of the hatchery. T'Pol questions his command and is confined to her cabin. Then Reed and Trip and Dr. Phlox are successfully dismissed, and the senior officers decide that only mutiny can save the Enterprise. Real quick, I want to take a minute. And based on last episode and this episode, I read a lot of these summaries off of IMDb. And Claudio Carvalho from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I don't know when you wrote these, but these are very good storyline summaries. Thank you so much. I'm reading yours, and I appreciate you adding them. Now, Hatchery is a very good episode. I liked it a lot. For me, the one that shines here the most, I thought, was T'Pol. I would love to hear what you think.
I had Archer.
It's funny. We talked about this in the car when we were driving after we had watched it. We watched this one together again. Like I watched it again and I watched it with you. And in the beginning of this episode, when he is first sprayed, and he's like, "No, we got to try and save them." That was a very Archer thing to do.
Yes, that was Archer, and then he gets obsessed. Like,
yeah.
Oh, who cares about Earth? We can use these guys. These guys are more important.
Exactly. Like, I don't care about my crew. Then it's like, okay, this is an Archer.
I wrote down on other things as mutiny because they just mutiny.
Yeah. Yeah, they do mutiny. They have to mutiny because he is compromised. And Hayes was really good in this too, because Hayes was following orders to the T, and I do like his interaction with Malcolm, and it's Malcolm Reed.
Because like in it, they aren't really fighting anymore. Because
they're at odds, but they're not fighting.
But like at the end, it seemed like they were a conversation, like they're friends, like because Reed's like, because
It's
Hayes
almost
is
like
like, why'd you do this? Reed's like, because he's not, because like something happened. Hayes is like, why didn't you just tell me? And then they're like, why?
Yeah.
Because because then Reed says, because we didn't know if you'd take, because we couldn't have you taking the captain's side. And then Hayes said, yes, I probably would.
Yeah. No, and I like that. So what do you think of this episode, though? I know you said Archer shined for you. I think T'Pol shined for me.
I have this at top 3. I don't know if this would. I don't
Top
think
3 of the
this is
season? Or the back half of the season?
back half. I have this top 3 of season as well.
Okay.
Just barely though.
All right. Next one is episode 18 of season 3, Azadi Prime. All right. Enterprise has finally arrived at Azadi Prime, the suspected location of the Xindi weapon, only to find it protected by a very sophisticated security grid. There's one way to pass it, by using the insectoid shuttle. Mayweather and Trip visit the planet, find out the weapon is indeed there. To destroy it, the shuttle must be sent back for a one-way trip. Mayweather and Trip are prepared, but Archer decides he should be the one to sacrifice himself. Then he gets a visit from Crewman Daniels, the time agent. He tells why the Xindi want to destroy Earth and urges him to reconsider his decision. You know what? There's a lot of revelations in this one. That kind of explains the whole story. And before we get into it, to me, Archer, of course, was the one that shined the most in this one. This is a very Archer episode. I loved. This is the only episode where Daniels really showed up, and I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, you're actually doing something that's helpful, because he finally tells them, like, they're going. Archer's going to sacrifice himself. He's going to blow up the weapon. Weapon's not there when he gets back, and Daniels, of course, takes him and says, you got to talk your way out of this. You have to be diplomatic. You can't fight your way out of this. We need the Xindi to be on your side. It's not their fault. They're afraid too. They think you're going to destroy them. And that's what they're being told. So it added a lot of layers, changed things up a bit, changed relationships. What did you think of this episode?
I liked it.
This was a top episode for me.
The best